911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Gio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
And good evening, everyone. This is Sean Forger, joined by Henry May, James Baker, and our special guest tonight, Rick Noll. I usually begin with a very long spiel of our happenings and an overview of last week's show, but because we got such a great guest, we're going to cut that through. And Henry, I'm going to drive it right to you for some news.
Okay, bro. Well, we've got an interesting editorial that I wrote earlier this week. Editorial. Was Grendel a Sasquatch? I'm referring to Grendel from the English epic Beowulf. The title hero had to overcome many challenges, including the challenge of a large, hairy, man-like creature called Grendel, which was vicious and known to kill soldiers of the army. And his mother was described the same way. In the battle, Beowulf leapt up and grabbed Grendel's arm in a wrestling hold, and the two battled until it seemed as though the hall might fall down due to their fighting. Beowulf's men drew their swords and rushed to his help, but their swords break upon Grendel's arm due to the thorny spikes and iron-tough skin of the monster. Finally, Beowulf tore Grendel's arm from his body at the shoulder, and Grendel ran to his home in the marshes to die. And then his mother came about and tried to... she actually killed the most trusted warrior, Aesir. So Beowulf went to her underwater lair and killed her and beheaded her. So very interesting stuff, you know. The name Grendel is also used in several mediums today, including a novel and a sci-fi movie. It has also been connected to Sasquatch as well, with John Johnson from Florida naming his production company Grendel Films, as well as a certain well-known controversial Sasquatch UFO researcher from the Bay Area who used the name for a project in the past. We will never know if Grendel was a Sasquatch or not, but it is certainly interesting to think about.
So what prompted the editorial, Henry?
I just got to thinking about it, you know. I got to thinking, you know, well, because the description of Grendel was very much like our modern-day Sasquatches, you know, why not?
You were also saying earlier that we had a lot of activity back then, that they were seeing man, beasts, and things like that.
Wild men, yes.
Are you still thinking that maybe it's, you know, in the beginning the story was a little more, less supernatural, let's put it that way, and more of maybe something, and they perked it up kind of like Daniel Boone killing a bar when he was 3. You know what I mean?
That's always possible.
Yeah. Oh, that's Davy Crockett. I apologize.
Yeah.
Please no bad hate letters from Texas.
Well, anyway, let's see. I guess that's about the only news that's really going on right now.
Slow news week.
Yeah, pretty much.
So okay, well let's let's skip the news and get right into our guest. Tonight, folks, we have Rick Noll on. You voted for him. He's the man you wanted to hear the most. And so thank God you won't have to hear too much from me. So with Henry and James here, I'm going to be manning the lines and manning the chat room with questions. You two take it away, and there we go.
Okay, well, let me give you a brief background on Rick Noll here. He's been actively searching for the Sasquatch since 1969 and continues his pursuit with extended field trips into the Pacific Northwest's most remote regions. Rick has worked with Peter Byrne, Renee DeHinden, Grover Krantz, John Green, Jeff Meldrum, and the BFRO during all this. He helped with many documentaries on the subject, including Animal X, The Skookum Expedition, and Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. Rick is the caretaker of the Skookum cast, a supposed half-body impression of a Sasquatch taken from a mud pit in Skookum Meadows, Washington State. And Rick, welcome to the Sasquatch Experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Rick, just how in the world did you get started on your research into the Sasquatch?
I think, you know how baby ducks get imprinted with their mother? I think it was something like that. My brother nearly drowned in a river, the Klamath River, on a trip to Northern California, and I saved him out of the river, pulled him out of the river, and every bit of his clothes, everything he was carrying, was stripped off of his body because of the fierceness of the river. And it really shook me up, and I thought, after it was all over, he could have died. And it really affected me, and I started having nightmares. And my cousin, who had taken us to this area, he was working there on some bridges, he's the one that started telling me about Bigfoot, and I think it just took the place of my fear of my brother dying, and took root at that time. And it wasn't until I got back into civilization that I started reading about it. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot up until that time. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. We are going to start with an interesting question, and this refers to a rather controversial subject, and that would be the Memorial Day footage. I know that there have been those who have said that it's a hoax, or they can't tell anything from it, or there are those who claim that Fred Bradshaw was there at the film site. You can hear his voice on the audio. Having heard the audio, Rick, I'm unsure. I mean, I've heard Fred Bradshaw's voice. I've heard Tom Lyne's voice. And I think most likely the audio is from Tom Lyne's. But what is your assessment? I know you investigated it extensively. What is your assessment of the whole Memorial Day footage controversy?
Well, I think Owen and Lori Pate and Tom Lyne's are very truthful and honest people. And when they showed me the video, they were interested in having other people take a look at it, and it wasn't for monetary gain or anything like that. There was no mention of money. It was just that they had seen something, and they wanted to have an answer as to what it was. I spent I don't know, probably 8 days at Lake Chapaka, where this incident occurred, over the course of a year, and one part of that was with a film crew. And I've walked that hillside, I've ran across it, and it's a dangerous pathway. And for someone to go that far away from their camp in the hopes of not being seen too well and be mistaken for something like a Bigfoot is kind of far-fetched in my mind. As far as a mistaken identity, that it was something else, say a human in dark clothing, that's always a possibility, but no one has come forward yet and said that they were there. And it's been, that video has now been in people's homes for, since 1996, first in the news. It was a news report, a big news report, and then in Legend Meets Science, a Discovery Channel program, and then after that it was on a few other programs, as well as you can purchase it on DVD. So without anybody forthcoming and saying that that was them up on that hill, I think everybody's guess is wide open still.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the supposed? Well, actually, it is in the audio where someone says, "Looks like a white boy to me," and some friends of the late Fred Bradshaw said that was something he liked to say, and they said that they were absolutely positive that was Fred Bradshaw's voice on that audio. Now, after having heard that audio, I'm not so sure. What is your assessment of that particular aspect?
Well, doing research in it, at first you have to find out if Fred could have been up there, and if he was up there. And Fred Bradshaw, at the time, was living over by Grays Harbor, and a good friend of mine, who I've gone out with, and also looks for a Bigfoot, contacted, I believe it was his sister, and said that no, he didn't go. He would have told me. And she listened to the audio and said, no, that's not his voice. Also, I did some checking because Ray Crow is a great source for historical information. I mean, he writes down everything. And I looked in some of the track records for that time period, and sure enough, I found that Fred Bradshaw had stopped by that week and said that he was going down to talk to Henner Fehrenbach, and then he was going to have an operation, a serious operation, one that would leave him incapacitated. He would not have been able to go up in that area. It's a four-wheel drive area. And having my mother just go through open heart surgery, I know for a fact that anybody that goes through that is not going to be bouncing along on a trail somewhere. So with that, that's about the only thing that I can say in my investigation, other than actually talking to the principals of the entire incident and having them state categorically that it was Tom Lyons' voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, Fred Bradshaw has passed away, so we really, we can't say, we can't ask him, oh, yeah, were you there, because we can't ask him that now.
Right.
But, in all honesty, I'm sorry?
What do people, if he was there, what does it mean?
Well, that's a good point, Rick, yes. What does it mean? Does it mean it was a hoax? No. Just because Fred Bradshaw was there, if he was there, you're right. I don't see what difference it would make.
Yeah, I don't either. But people have latched on to that. It was controversial when it first came out. I remember Owen Pate, when he first stopped by my house and showed me the video, saying that the first person he contacted was Larry Lund. And from Larry Lund, it went to Peter Byrne. Peter Byrne didn't go with the Pates to the site. As far as I know, no Bigfoot investigator has ever been to the site except for myself. And Peter asked for a copy of the tape and took it to Rene DeHinden. Well, before Peter got it, Owen Pate has some relatives that own a video store, and they told him that he should take it down to this American Video Productions in Seattle and make a duplicate of it, and maybe they can enhance it a little bit. Well, they did. They enhanced it by looping it over and over and over. So it ran across the hill over and over and over to anybody that didn't know what they were looking at. Well, when Peter took the copy of the tape up to Rene DeHinden, that's what Rene DeHinden saw. And when I asked Rene DeHinden about the video, what did he think? He said, well, there's not much that you can say or tell about it, except for it's kind of silly that this thing keeps on running across the hill. Right then I knew that nobody really took a serious look at this.
So you're saying that the original video, to what we have seen, may have been augmented with maybe the extra sounds and the video looping the way it is, and that may be why it's...
No, I'm saying that what Peter Byrne took up to Renee DeHinden was an edited version of the original tape.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what White Wolf Productions had was the original tape, the high 8 tape.
Yeah. Now, there was some controversy as to why the audio was left out of Legend Meets Science, especially on the DVD.
That was at request of the Pates because they were on vacation. They had some spirits with them, and they were partying, and they thought that there was some racist comments made, and they didn't want it to be out there. It was politically incorrect in their minds.
Okay.
So Doug honored that, and Doug Hychek, who made Legend Meets Science, honored that and left the audio out.
Well, that explains that away then. We have a question from our Yahoo chat room from Bill Green. He says, "Hey Rick, what new Bigfoot research projects are you planning on doing? Are you planning on going to any new Bigfoot conferences in the near future? Thanks, Bill."
Well, currently I'm trying to finish up the editing on I know it's kind of late, but the 2005 Texas Bigfoot conference.
Oh,
and
great!
It's turning out really good. I think I pretty much am done with a new program that's going to be airing on the History Channel this summer.
Oh, yeah.
And what else? I'll be at the Texas conference. I'll talk there. And I think that's about it. I have done some, I'm just finishing up a bunch of things. Like there was a Bigfoot Reflections. I had a little bit part in that. There was a college that is putting together in Seattle. They're putting together a Screen Actors Guild, a SAG piece to be shown at in these festivals, and it's a murder mystery, and so it's not a documentary at all, but it's sort of where I'm playing a scientist out in the woods by myself, and I'm putting up camera traps, and I hear this disturbance, and I go over to one of the areas where I put camera traps, and something attacks me and kills me. And I don't know what happens after.
You're not making it to the sequel.
Yeah, right. As a matter of fact, I'm probably only like a minute in the entire show.
Yeah, but you're still on there, and that's important because a lot of people get cut out if they're only in there a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I can see the petitions. Bring back Noll. Bring back Noll.
Start that out.
There's a few other things going on. There's a expedition that's coming fall that I'm going to go on, and I'm continuing to write, but a lot of it is the video work. Mm-hmm. I hope that answers the question, Bill.
I'm sure it does. When will that Texas Bigfoot conference be available? I mean, is there a set time? Time frame?
Yeah, I wanted to have it out way before now, but you don't really get paid for doing this Bigfoot stuff, and I have a regular day job that I'm working in the aircraft industry, and we've got some big contracts, and it's very hard to take time off to do that, and so I try and squeeze in hours here and there to do the video editing. I wanted it to be done by the next conference, and last year there wasn't a conference in Texas. They were busy changing the format of their organization, and now they're nonprofit. But we'll see. I've got Jeff Meldrum's done, and I sent off proofs, I guess you would call them, of his talk, and sent it to Paul Vella. Sent a copy to Paul for his opinion. I sent a copy to Craig Woolheater and a copy to Jeff Meldrum. And the style of this, I shot it with 2 cameras this time, and then I put the slides up at the top. So now you've got a camera from the left and a camera from the right as the speaker is speaking, and there's slides up above. So there's a lot of information on any given point in the video, and I think Jeff Meldrum really makes his point about the mid-tarsal break and about how other apes do have that mid-tarsal break, where it comes from, why it's there, historically all the way up to the chimpanzee Jason that he is working with.
Wow. Yeah, I have the Willow Creek 2003 Symposium DVDs, and I think they're very well done, very well edited, and just great production, I thought.
Well, this time I handled everything, so if there's any fault, it's right on my shoulders.
Okay, we have a couple of questions, a couple more questions from our chat room from Billy Willard. Questions for Rick from Billy Willard of Sasquatch Watch of Virginia. Question 1, Rick, have you been successful in designing video recording equipment that emits no sound? That's the first question.
No, I don't really design video equipment, and if I did, I would, I think that from what I have been working with, I've been to various countries doing this as well as the United States, that most professional photographers, wildlife photographers, are doing it from a distance. And only a few of them are using remote cameras. And there's only one that I know of is getting significant results with video cameras that are left on a trip. And that's with the snow leopards. And I've been seeing some pretty good programs where people have been experimenting with them, but they're affiliated with National Geographic, Discovery, all sorts of places where that is the specific purpose of looking for or of getting of the entire program. Whereas any Bigfoot program that's out there right now, they will take historical information about Bigfoot, but when it comes time to going out in the field and doing real work, real research, real searching, and I hate to say it, but most of it is for show.
Mm-hmm.
You said something earlier about your day job.
Uh-huh.
And I gotta tell you, that's not your average day job working in the aerospace field. You're working with some high-tech planes and high-tech equipment, or at least you're creating some of that. Have you, in your travels, had, the people that you contact through probably the Air Force and the flight industry and things like that, have they sent you any pictures of odd things they've ever found from the air?
No, I've had a few people that I work with that have found tracks that when they were out camping and stuff, and a couple that have made some audio recordings that I think turned out to be just odd coyote noises. But no, I haven't. Most of the people that are high tech, you very rarely. Well, I do know some that are in the high tech industry that do really enjoy getting away from that high tech stuff and going out into the woods, but it's far and few between.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We have a second question from Billy Willard. He says, do you think the reason that no one has been successful capturing a photo of Sasquatch could be because they are able to spot man-made objects easily in their natural habitat?
Well, it's certainly a possibility. Most primates are very cognitive, and I know it sounds anthropomorphic, but they seem to be a lot smarter than the other animals that are out there. I mean, a deer will walk up to a camera trap, a bear will too, but I guess it just depends on the circumstances. I mean, I've got a lot of pictures from camera traps that are from people running down a hill, and they don't know the camera's there. kind of odd, but and certainly there's a lot more humans out there than there probably is Bigfoot. So my odds are increasing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's terrific. Now we're going to get to let's see, the Skookum cast. Now you were very intimately involved in the. You were very intimately involved in that, and there's been some controversy around that as well, referring to the fact that some researchers think that's of an elk. That's an elk wallow, and that there were no Sasquatch footprints going to or from the Skookum cast. And a lot of people think, well, that's indicative that it's an elk wallow. Could you give us a little bit of background on the Skookum cast and the circumstances surrounding it, and also your thoughts on the controversy?
Well, I'll start with the controversy first.
Sure.
The controversy is partly stems from the organization that was involved with it. There's a lot of animosity right now towards the organization. They don't feel it's being run right, or it's secretive, or it's making money and nobody else is. All the kind of things that your mother told you not to worry about the Joneses across the street, and that the grass isn't always greener, kind of thing. I think that's a lot of where it comes from. The thing is that when I signed on to do that expedition, I asked Matt Moneymaker, who was in charge of the BFRO, that if I was to go on it, would I get to keep anything that I made? And he goes, what do you mean? He says, well, if I get a picture, if I make a cast, do I get to keep it? Because I don't want to turn it over. So many things have gotten lost, disappeared. And then it's even more of a mystery that it disappeared than the fact that it even existed. And he said, no, you get to keep everything. So that's the reason why the cast is in my possession. Along with the fact that all the plaster that made it up was mine, and of course my tent poles. But okay, let's go on to the other parts about addressing that there was no footprints going into the actual impression site. It was very, very hard-packed dirt and rocks surrounding this little wet spot on the side of the road. It wasn't an elk wallow. An elk wallow is often in the distance, away from roads, away from humans, because elk, when they get into one of those wallows, is doing personal hygiene or mating rituals or mating behavior, and they don't run the risk of doing that kind of stuff out in the open, especially during hunting season. On the expedition, not one elk was seen, and at that time, all elk wallows the grass is growing through it because the elk are through being in those wallows. They don't partake in that part at all anymore. And what was there was another part to the question.
It was just the circumstances surrounding it, and
okay.
How it came to be, I guess.
Yeah. Well, two incidences actually happened, one right before the other, and that was the later one of the instances. But the fruit that we laid out in various spots were in about 5 to 7 other areas. I don't know for sure exactly how many because of the excitement and who was putting the fruit out. I started going out with in my vehicle that has a sunroof with Dan Searle, who was with the Animal X Project, and he had a thermal imaging camera pointed out the sunroof. This is at night, of course. And it was tied to a video camera because it doesn't record on its own. And Matt Moneymaker was sitting in the back seat with the video camera recording. And we were looking for heat signatures of footprints crossing dirt roads at night. And wherever we saw something that looked like heat impressions, we would stop, and I would get out and open up some fruit, crush it so that the smell would permeate the area right there. And then we drive on. And we did that, and we got about 10 miles away when my vehicle quit. And we had to call for people to come and get us. And we got back into camp, and we told everybody what we had done. And Leroy Fish and Derek Randall thought it was a great idea, and so they grabbed some more fruit, and they said they were going to continue. And they went and put out some more fruit. One of which was where the Skookum cast was made, the impression there. But there was a small little area we call a gravel pit right beside our camp, and we were pulled into there, and there's this rocky hillside, and we had decided to put some fruit up in there. It would be a good place to see any tracks coming down to get that fruit. And we knew that, birds were going to get some of the fruit and wouldn't leave any tracks at all. So anyway, this sort of slope was pretty steep, and it was loose soil, and it was good tracking conditions, and it was about 50 feet high. The upper road was right near the edge of that, and we placed some fruit in the middle of that slope. The next morning when we checked, we were going to get a battery for my vehicle. We assumed that it was a battery. It turned out to be the starter. Anyway, the next morning when we drove out to get the battery for my truck, the fruit was missing, and there was this big, long, must have been 12-foot long, very heavy-duty branch laying in the middle of that hillside. And we thought that was kind of odd. We searched around. We couldn't find any footprints. So we continued on. And the next site was where the Skookum impression was found. And we walked around that looking for footprints. That was our search image in our brain. Just like when you lose your keys, you try and get that search image in your head, and it seems to aid in finding your keys. So we were looking for footprints. We knew what they looked like. We searched around there, couldn't find anything that looked like a Bigfoot footprint. We saw other footprints, but we didn't see any of those. And then we started getting a bigger picture of what we're looking at, and we started seeing hair embedded into this muddy area on the side of the road. And we also noticed that the fruit pile was still there, but all the apples were gone, and there was apple bits all over this hairy impression. And we decided to take pictures and then go down and get some of the other people from the camp and bring them up to show them what we found. We brought them up. Matt Moneymaker came up, and we were sitting around discussing what it could possibly be. We went through bear, elk, another human, and we couldn't figure out what it was. We had hunters there. We had scientists there. And we were about ready to pack it up when Matt says, well, of course you've got to cast this. And that's where the cast came from. We went ahead and casted it.
Could you keep some of the other stuff that you found at the same time? The hair and some of the other stuff?
Did we tape it?
No, did you keep some of it? I mean, was it ever tested to make sure that it was what it was, or?
Well, you got to realize that there is trackers out there that will tell you that whenever they go out in the woods, they sit and they look in the area that they're sitting, and they won't get up until they find a hair. There is so much hair in the ground, it is unbelievable. So when we were there, we did see hair, and Dr. Bamenak decided he was going to start collecting it, and he did collect a few strands. I don't know exactly what he did with those, and he was also picking up some of the apple bits. But we put a stop to that, and we put the apple bits into a jar, and he advised us to put it into some isopropyl alcohol, which quickly dissolved the apple, dissolved any DNA. I mean, I don't know anything about that, but that's what happened to it. The hair that was embedded in the cast went with the cast. When we made the cast, the hair was still in it. So when we pulled the cast out, there was about 3 inches of mud still attached to the face of the cast. And the way you make a cast out in the field to ensure that you're getting the most accurate surface is after you pull it, you leave that stuff on and let it air dry off. If you try and wipe it off then, you're going to introduce your own fingertips or any tool marks that you decide to use to clean the cast. So it's
alter the print. Yeah.
What?
You alter the print.
Right, you do.
So
it sat for 3 or 4 days at Derek Randall's home drying. And then Jeff Meldrum came over and started cleaning the cast. And what he found, of course, embedded in that 3 inches of dirt was hair. But if anything sat down on mud, hair would not bury itself 3 inches down. It would be on the surface. So any hair that we were interested in was embedded into the cast. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's my Malamute. But anyway, so the hair was left in the cast. That's why it's the cast is protected. And when we did Legend Meet Science, they were surprised that they could still find hair. Now, the cast hasn't been fully examined for all the hair that it does contain, but there's still hair there. Now, Dr. Leroy Fish collected 3 sets of samples, about 20 hairs apiece, and divided them up into 3 sets. He kept 1 set, and 1 set he sent to Henner Fehrenbach. And the other set, I'm not sure where the other set went. But the set that went to Henner said that there was a lot of elk and bear in there, and deer. But he did find some stuff that resembled the Sasquatch hairs that he's identified from other sites. So Leroy decided to go down to Henner's and find out how he identifies Sasquatch hair, and got himself a microscope. And Leroy was a PhD, so he's fully capable of learning this kind of stuff. Went and learned from Henner what he was doing, and then did it himself on his own set. And he found 3 more hairs that said the same thing that Henner sample did. So that's where the hair sample information is. As far as what happened with Legend Meet Science now, the hair sample that came from there, I don't know. I don't know where that sample came from. It didn't come from me.
All right, we have another question from Bill Green. Rick, is Sasquatch-related activity still quite common in Skookum Valley? And is there a lot of food resources for Sasquatch creatures in that particular forest area?
In the Skookum Meadows area?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, there's a lot of food sources there. A lot of people think that, Bigfoot would take down big game. And that would be very, very dangerous for any animal to take down a fully mature animal in its prime. So what I look for, actually, is when calves are born. And that's a specific time of year. Other animals look for calves at that time as well, cougar and bear. You can tell a cougar kill from a bear kill quite easily. I don't know how you tell the two apart from, say, a Bigfoot kill, but a cat kill is partially buried after it kills a calf. A bear is just ripped to pieces. It's all over the place. And anyway, Skookum Meadows, which is close to where we were. We were in the Crazy Hills, actually, is a place where a lot of calving happens. So that's a really major food source, as well as the fish that are in the area. It's very good for fish. And, of course, the Sawtooth Berry Mountain berry fields are right there. It's historically a very important place to the Indians, so important that legislation in Washington State has been written just for berry fields, and Sawtooth is a major one where the Native Americans get the rights to pick the berries before anybody else can pick them. And of course, they have stories about sharing those fields with Bigfoot. I hope that answers the questions.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rick, what are some of your personal feelings on what Sasquatch is, and based on the research that you have done into them?
Well, I haven't run across anybody that has told me that they've witnessed Bigfoot building a fire, using tools, building shelters. There's a lot of people saying that they've seen shelters and they attribute them to Bigfoot, but I'm not getting any reports whatsoever of them even leaving signs that everybody, like signs in passing or telling another Bigfoot, walk this way, anything like that. So for it to live out in the woods that way without any of those, I would say it has to be just another animal and not a type of human. Now, up in my study area, which was shown in that History Channel show, Giganto, the real King Kong, mm-hmm. That area right there, there was a hermit. Not really a hermit, although that's what Joel Harden calls it in his book, The Tracker, a hermit. He was really a Bulgarian ex-secret policeman who, when the country changed its political stance, escaped and went to Canada and then filtered his way down into the United States and grabbed himself a girlfriend near Lake Washington outside of Seattle and proceeded to get jealous and nearly burned her alive in her apartment. And so he was wanted for attempted murder, and he escaped and lived for 12 years in the woods outside of my study area and was vandalizing people's summer cottages and cabins. He was living out there underground. He built 3 facilities, and he built himself tools. He used fire, and it was strange. It took Joel Harden 3 years to find him. Everybody else, it took 12 years before the guy finally came to justice. So the I forget the point now why I even said that story, but
don't feel bad. I have a tendency to babble now and then too.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Okay, we have a question from Corey O'Leary from our chat room. Does Mr. Noll think that a really good video would do anything to at least open up the possibilities of the Sasquatch's existence? A video at least as good as the PG movie, as far as the scientific community goes, anyway.
I would say no. In my mind, what it's going to take is repeatable evidence, meaning that if you are going to specialize in one tactic, such as photography, video, then it has to be repeatable. You have to understand the process that you went about getting those pictures in the first place and be able to do it over and over and over and bring others in for them to witness it as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A lot of comments in the chat room there.
Yeah.
So pardon the moments of silence as we're trying to weed through the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you, Rick. You were at the 2005 East Coast Bigfoot Conference as a speaker, and I was in the audience and thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. In fact, that was the first time I saw the what would become known as the New York baby footage.
Uh-huh.
And I was just curious if you're still, investigating that at all, or if that's kind of been case closed.
No, I was asked to work on the video, and that was the extent of it. Usually, I only try and deal with stuff that's in my local area because I finance my own equipment and trips and stuff. And so I wouldn't be able to go someplace like New York and really do a thorough investigation. To me, that video is really just showing I think a camper up there, some big people walking out of their tents, and they released a pet, some sort of pet that they have, some sort of monkey. I showed it to a couple of scientists, like Dare Swindler, and he thought it was fascinating. It looked sort of like a colobus, he said, but in a way it didn't. But he didn't know because it was such a poor video. So, yeah, stuff like that, I do what is asked of me, if I can do it, and I don't really pursue it any further than that.
I was never really too keen on the New York Bigger footage, maybe because the fact that there was a lot of intoxication going on, but more so the fact that it was just so dark and
right,
just no discernible qualities other than what was swinging in the tree. But did you get out in any mountainous regions of Pennsylvania during your trip?
I went to a couple of sites near a lake, and that was about it. I didn't get to go to any mountainous regions. I've been to some areas in Ohio and in Oklahoma, and I was in Georgia and in Florida, Puerto Rico, California, Idaho, Montana, British Columbia, and most recently Malaysia.
Yeah, tell us about your Malaysian trip. I know you went over there, what was it, last summer?
Yeah.
Tell us about what you found and where do you think there is a possibility of there being a Johor hominid?
Well, certain parts of the trip, I think, are still under a non-disclosure agreement with the History Channel, but I can say that the Arangosali over there, I believe, are truthful. The Arangosali are an indigenous people that have everybody has great respect for, and most of the sightings and footprint finds are being found by those natives. Now, those natives are the only ones actually, that are going into the jungle proper and would run across creatures like that. Any type of tourist or camper or something would be going to a resort. There's just, there's elephants and tigers in there. There's cobras and tree snakes, and the ground is just littered with leeches. Nobody in their right mind would go out there unless you had to work in the environment, and that's what the Arangosali do. They go out there and they collect rattan. And the information that I got from them was that they believe that they eat turtles, and the footprints don't look exactly like ours. They actually look almost like a possibility of a double imprint of a rhino. It's pretty big and pretty wide. They didn't have any pictures. They just drew it out in the sand for us. I did meet up with Vincent Chow and Ang, and we did interviews with them and discussed some stuff with them. And they were very reluctant to talk to us at first, and then they realized that we were with the History Channel and that this was their chance to really come forward and present their evidence. So I was over there being guided by the API group, great bunch of guys, and I guess there was some animosity between them. They didn't know each other, except for Vincent Chow was, been in the newspapers a lot. But anyway, they were reluctant to show us the pictures that they had at the time, stating that there was like 15 other pictures and that they were just making those little drawings of little sections of it. They were over-analyzing the pictures to the point of what kind of geology that the creatures were interacting with. And it was kind of weird, you know, it really was. The next day after the interview, and they finally decided to show us pictures, the next day we found out that they thought it wasn't so bad going public, and they presented it on the web. And sure enough, someone recognized those pictures as coming from a book. So I kind of think that our trip was a key ingredient in solving that hoax. And I don't know who's all behind it, but it was disturbing to have them calling and asking us not to air that stuff, which we haven't aired it yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there any way of knowing? I mean, what I mean is, when exactly will this program air? I know you said this summer on the History Channel.
Yeah, it's a series. It's not
right.
It's not just a one-off show. It's going to be a series, and I'm not exactly sure when it is going to start airing because the History Channel is going high def, more so than it ever has in the past, and this high def is throwing some little kinks in the entire process that they know so well. And the format that they usually use doesn't always work with something as radical as going from standard def to high def. And so it's just some technical things, I think. But I'm positive that it's going to be starting up, you know, June, July, something like that.
Well, sounds great. Yeah.
Now, the whole series is not all about Bigfoot, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds great. I remember I was actually a little bit privy to this information. I guess it was last fall. I wasn't in the chat room, but I heard that you had been in the BFF chat room kind of discussing it. And, of course, I was very careful to keep it quiet, you know, until the proper time. But, yeah, this sounds like, you know, it's just going to be... This is from Doug Hycheck, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Doug Hycheck, White Wolf Productions.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I certainly hope it's better than Mysterious Encounters. I mean, not that I have a problem with it, you know, but some of the stuff on Mysterious Encounters was just a little bit over the top, and you know, reality show kind of thing.
Yeah, when you work for a network like Doug was for Outdoor Life Network, you have to look at the pressures that are put upon these independent filmmakers, and one of the pressures is that what kind of age group are they trying to attract? They could care less about if Bigfoot researchers are going to watch this show. They want to know who's going to be watching it and their clientele, and that's also what the sponsors, the advertisers are worried about as well. And I think Mysterious Encounters suffered from that quite a bit. The premise was pretty neat, but it quickly, I think OLN started seeing dollar signs when they started realizing everybody else was switching over to these reality TV shows, and that they have something right here that they could develop into a reality TV show. But it didn't.
We have a question from Melissa Hovey from Texas. What does Rick Noll think of the growing numbers of women involved in the field of Bigfoot research? And what does he think they can add?
Well, certainly the Bigfoot field has been dominated by the male population around the world. There is a few women that have gotten involved in the past, and I think it's great that they're getting more and more involved, and I'm hoping that there might be a breakthrough because of it. Just as right now we're learning more and more that years ago Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and Gildas Barute had found out, but didn't publish because they had, I guess you would say they empathized with the animal more so than what a male would. George Schaller was actually one of the first people to go out with the gorillas and live with them, and he published right off the bat. He was a true scientist, whereas Diane Fossey, on the other hand, withheld a lot of stuff and actually never produced as much or the quality that George Schaller did, but it spent more time with the gorillas. There's a reason for that, and she was looking at the subject a little bit differently than George Schaller, and I'm hoping that that aspect of the entire thing is going to help us.
Yep. Well, we're rapidly, this hour has just gone by very fast. We're rapidly coming up to the top of the hour. Rick, we always ask for our guests for final thoughts on just any final thoughts you may have, and also we always ask our guests this: kill or no kill?
Well, kill or no kill. That was popular back in 1978 too. Everybody wanted to know that, and the media hyped that up. The whole thing is that if you go to the zoo and you watch these gorillas, you watch any animal in that zoo, and think that you can go out and shoot one of these and call it science, you're born a few centuries late. I think that is gone, and anybody that does go out and shoot one is going to be have so much peer pressure against them that they're going to have to hide under a rock. You don't see NASA with plans to go to another planet and collect life and bring it back here. They want to study it there, and they don't want to harm it, and they don't want to dirty up the environment doing so. My passing thought is I just finished a chapter in Joel Hardin's book, The Tracker, and I found it sort of disturbing that the entire premise of the chapter was the Forest Service was under pressure by ABC, NBC, CBS for Joel to go and prove that Bigfoot tracks were fake, so that they didn't have to let people go in to watersheds. And Joel understood that and went there for the express purpose of making sure that those tracks were a hoax. I'm not saying that he was wrong. I'm just saying that that's exactly what he wrote in that chapter, and it's very disturbing that there was such prejudice to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's my final comment.
Okay. Well, Rick, we want to thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. It's been a great deal of fun, and we just want to thank you. This was great. This was fun.
I'm glad. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. Maybe some people didn't, but Bigfoot is kind of on the periphery of things still. But anyway.
Rick Noll, thanks very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you on. And hope you'll join us again. It's been a lovely show tonight, folks. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. More so listening. You haven't had to hear me banter and rave all night. There's always a positive for all of you. And James Baker, nice to hear you again.
I like a nice rave.
Glad you're doing better and that you don't smell so much like icy hot this week.
Turns you on.
And, hey.
Okay, folks.
That's what we got this week for the Sasquatch. Keep on squatching.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.